Welcome to the University of Michigan School of Information, Master of Applied Data Science Live Q&A. I'm Amy Humkus-Hayes, Assistant Director of Academic Program Development and MADS staff team member, and I'm excited to be here with all of you today answering your questions about the MADS degree. Before we get started though, let me go ahead and let my colleague introduce herself, as she is here representing our admissions team and is eager to answer all of your admissions questions.
Hi, my name is Rachel Weiner. I'm the Assistant Director for Recruitment and Admission. Extremely excited to be working with Amy and many others on helping to develop and launch this brand new online Master of Applied Data Science degree. So glad to be here and answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Rachel. So as we indicated when we promoted this event, this is a live Q&A where we will have the opportunity to answer any and all admissions and program questions that we have answers for about our new fully online Master of Applied Data Science degree. You'll see that I have my phone in my hand, and the good news is that I'm not, in fact, texting friends or checking out social media. I am using this in order to correspond with the person that is looking at your questions. That person is actually sat right over here. You can't see her. Her name's Caitlin, although some of you may have communicated with her over email. But Caitlin is going to go ahead and act as the conduit between the questions that you're submitting over YouTube live events and Rachel and me. So we're going to spend a little bit of time together today delving a little bit deeper into the MADS application process, what we're looking for, what it means to do a holistic review, what some of our application requirements are, and then we're also going to take some time to answer questions about this degree. As many of you know, the degree is new, it's exciting, the approach is a little bit different in so much as how we're offering the curriculum, but we're really eager to provide a flexible degree to those folks that are interested in pursuing a specialized path in data science. So we'll go ahead and get started, and I don't see any questions yet. That's okay. We've got a lot of time on our hands. So I've got some pre-submitted questions that I'm going to go ahead and answer or ask Rachel about some of the most common things that we hear from folks who are interested in applying or are applying to the MADS program. So Rachel, to start, I'm actually going to ask you more of a conceptual question. Sure. So as you can imagine, people will often ask us, like, what does it mean to engage in a holistic application process? You know, what does that actually mean? Can you explain to us in a little bit of detail what a holistic review looks like?
Absolutely. So here at the School of Information, we value this holistic review approach. And what that means for us is that we are looking at all components of an application, and not only looking at them all, but looking at them in context. So in the context that they are provided, in the context of who you are as a whole person. And so all of the different requirements of the application, which are listed on our website, but all of those pieces kind of help us tell the story, or help you tell the story to us about who you are. And so holistically, what we mean is that it's not that any one particular thing is going to have a certain numerical weight over another. It's that, I'll give a couple examples. So for someone who has for instance, your transcripts, those transcripts that are required for any degree you've received. So oftentimes, we all know about GPA. That's one indicator on a transcript that we could be looking at. A GPA is not the whole picture of what your transcript could look like. So a GPA is at one point in time or a cumulative. However, we might look more holistically at better understanding what do certain courses that you might have taken, how might you have done in those courses, if there's any gaps, how that might be explained somewhere else. We know that folks have a variety of different paths throughout their educational careers. And so that transcript as a whole is going to look a lot different than just a single data point of a GPA. So that's one example of how holistically we look at the transcript. And as you can probably imagine, that sort of transcends throughout all of the different pieces that we're going to consider in your application.
Great. And Rachel, can you remind us for logistical purposes what the major facets of the application are?
Absolutely. So I mentioned transcripts. So any transcripts from which you've received a degree, those can be unofficial for the review process, so that often helps expedite your application submission, is that you can upload those directly into the application itself for the review process. And so there's the transcripts, there's a resume in which you would be highlighting things related to your academic indicators or contributions, your professional experiences, and also any leadership or professional or academic affiliations, any volunteering or community work that you might have done. So the resume, the transcripts, we have the application itself, which asks several demographic information. So we are, again, trying to better understand who you are and where you come from. There are essays, so a couple different types of essays. There are short answer prompts that really help to capture in 250 words or less different sort of areas as it relates to this degree. So asking prompts around your interests in this degree, asking prompts about your understanding of and excitement or interest within this context, in this field. And then there is a personal statement, which is a 1 page or less statement that can be submitted for, again, a little bit more of that context about who you are and what really drives you to want to pursue this particular degree and this graduate education experience. There are 3 letters of recommendation that are a part of this, which again happen right inside that application so that you have a better opportunity to manage who those folks are and when they are submitting their materials. But those 3 can be any combination of academic or professional references. And I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting any particular thing here, but transcripts, resume, essays, letters of rec, the application itself. I feel, unless I'm forgetting something hugely, but someone will remind me. Yeah. I think those are the main components.
Right, that's wonderful. And
ton of questions, great.
Oh, good, I'm glad to hear that. And another kind of reason why we do a holistic review, according to my understanding, is because we're looking for diverse applicants to come into our MADS program. So unlike other data science programs that we know require, for example, an undergraduate degree in a technical field like computer science, what I'm hearing you say is that this degree you could really come with a variety of different backgrounds or any background, as long as you meet those minimum requirements, and really be considered as in our applicant pool if in fact you can demonstrate that commitment to data science.
Absolutely.
That's great.
That's exactly right.
So we're going to go ahead and turn now to answering some of the questions that people have been posing. So the first question is, how new is this program? Is fall 2019 the very first entry class? It is, in fact, the very first entry class. So the program is brand new, but let me provide some additional, I think, important context to what we mean when we say new. So one is that the University of Michigan School of Information is not new. In fact, we've existed for a long time. We were one of the first schools of information to be founded in the United States. And we have a residential data science program. So we have students that pursue a master's degree in information and then choose to take a special set of classes, let's say, that focus more specifically on data science. So as you can imagine, we have several faculty that are trained data scientists, that this is what they do in their research and in their teaching. And fortunately, we're structuring the program in such a way that almost all, if not all of our courses are taught by core UMSI faculty. So what we mean by that is the same in these really critical data science. And the structure of the program is distinct from our residential program in that the vast majority of our courses totaling 34 credits for the degree, the study of data science in a school of information generally, and specifically ours, is actually quite old. And so we're really eager to leverage the expertise of our faculty who teach these data science courses and do this deep, deep research in data science and provide you that access to them online. Another question that came in is on whether or not online students can participate in commencement exercises. So for example, could a student who is participating in the MADS program upon graduation come and walk in our commencement ceremonies? So I will say that that is absolutely our hope and expectation, that in fact we can create pathways for or mechanisms for students to come join us. We know that may not be true for everyone, so we're also thinking about ways that we can bring a commencement-like or a celebratory experience to those students that can't come to Ann Arbor, Michigan, and enjoy and participate. And we certainly would expect that they could come and participate in our UMSI graduation ceremonies with all of our other UMSI students. Great question about TOEFL. So, can in fact students submit their results past the April 1st priority application deadline?
Yeah, so, and thank you. I was thinking about that as I handed it back over to Amy. So for any students or applicant who is applying as an international student or a non-native English speaker, there is a TOEFL requirement. There's a list of things on our website that help to determine if you might be eligible to waive that requirement. But to the specific question was asking about sort of the time frame. So as part of the application, we will need to see that for the review. So we would be looking for that to be received by us at the time that you are applying, and hopefully by that April 1st deadline. That being said, I think you should always, for unique or individual cases, you can always email us at umsi.mads, M-A-D-S, at umich.edu, just so that we can work with you. Caitlin will likely be the one who's working with you too, to determine if there's a certain timeline or time frame within a little bit of time that we could maybe give some accommodation for that.
Great. Relatedly, because we do have a priority application deadline of April 1st, some of our viewers are wondering whether or not letters of recommendation need to be fully submitted to the application by April 1st, or if simply the names of recommenders and their contact information need to be submitted by April 1st.
Good question. And it's a similar answer in that in order to be seen as complete, an application would need to have all of the components, so that would include the 3 letters of recommendation.
So what I'm hearing you say, though, Rachel, the good news is that
yes.
in an instance where April 1st comes and in fact you're still waiting on someone, that's okay. We would still want you to finish that application.
Absolutely.
And hit that submit button because we will, continually review applications.
Correct.
After that deadline.
Starting April 1st being that priority deadline for both admission and scholarship, but do note that after that deadline, we'll still be reviewing for both of those things as well.
That's great. So just so we're clear about that, we certainly don't want to dissuade anyone from feeling like, oh no, it's March 31st and I still haven't heard from that, or I still haven't gotten that one recommender's letter, or it's April 1st and I'm still waiting on that one recommender. Please submit your application.
Absolutely. That's the one thing I would recommend, we're using that word. But the thing that I would advise is that you always submit. So because that recommendation system is within the application, but you can submit your portion, and we can see that. And so we can be able to determine that you've submitted, we're in contact with you, and then those letters of recommendation can come in, and we would have seen that you had submitted your portion on or by around April 1st.
Great, thank you. So I have a great question here about how the coursework is taking shape. So let me talk just for a couple of minutes about how we conceptualize the MATS curriculum. So the School of Information made a really intentional choice to call this an applied data science degree. And that's because we're focusing on how to apply data science. And we're doing that within a specific frame. And we like to call that frame the end-to-end approach. So for those that are less familiar with what that means, essentially we're taking students through the entire cycle, through all phases of data science. So that would include at the outset of a data science project. How do you design an experiment to collect data? How do you determine what are the appropriate data sources to collect? Who are you collecting that data from, or what is the kind of data that you want to analyze? Is it data that is human, and what implications does that have? Is it data that is demographic? Is it data that is derived within specific systems or industries or contexts? So we start at that phase of understanding what it means to collect, to clean data, to put it into a proper format, and then we work through all of the additional phases of data science, including how do you analyze data, and what are the ways that you can go both deep and broad in so much as how you may conduct data science analysis. How do you pay attention to things like ethics in data science? So what does it mean to practice good ethics and to be a steward of data? What are the different techniques or methods that you can use that are grounded in things like math and statistics or computer science techniques? How do we expose you to trends in data science? So for example, we will have a course on natural language processing, for instance. We will talk about ways in which researchers and data scientists in the field use things like social media and analytics data. And then we will finish in the end-to-end cycle with talking about how you interpret and present data science results. So what does it look like when you're presenting data visualizations or results to other data scientists or technical folks? What does it mean when you're not, when you're actually presenting data science results to a lay audience, and what are the implications? So the curriculum is really emphasizing that end-to-end, full spectrum approach to how we teach data science. And because it's applied, a lot of the work that you'll do in courses are actual real live data sets. So we're going to take live data sets that exist either publicly or ones that we've gotten from the relationships that we have with different companies or organizations, and we're going to apply these specific, sophisticated methods and techniques to analyzing and interpreting these data. So that's how the coursework is taking shape. Conceptually, operationally, what that looks like is a number of 1 month, 1 credit long courses that are asynchronous, which means that you can come on to the Coursera platform, who's hosting our degree, and you can access that curriculum at any time that works for you. So if you're a full-time employee and you want to take your course, do the bulk of your work on the weekends, you can do that. If you want to have a schedule where every day you're watching 2 or 3 lecture videos, or you're doing some readings, or you're working through some programming assignments, you can do that. And so the goal is to really have a flexible curriculum that enables you to take as few as 1 credit and as many as 3 credits a month, and that enables you to get the full spectrum approach to data science. I should add a couple of things. One is that this program is Python based, so that is why we're asking all of our conditionally admitted students to take an assessment in basic Python, because that's the programming language that we're going to use. It does not mean that students won't be exposed to additional techniques or technical infrastructure, but almost every, if not every course really is going to have a Python component. And the other thing that we're looking for is some introductory statistics knowledge. So in order to be a successful data scientist, statistics is really a key skill set. You'll learn some statistics, you'll learn a lot of actually different statistical techniques, higher level statistical techniques in the program, but we are looking for you to have some entry level statistics knowledge when you, if you're conditionally admitted, that we'll assess in about an hour-long assessment.
I was going to say, I think that actually lends itself nicely to another question that we get often, which is about the assessments, in particular those two. Is there any additional information you can give about that structure or things like that?
Absolutely. So the Python assessment is 2 parts.
Okay.
One is a programming part where conditionally admitted students will be asked to program in Python using an infrastructure called Jupyter Notebooks. So students will have an opportunity to, conditionally admitted students to first practice in the Jupyter Notebook platform. We'll actually have a practice assessment that you can do, and then you'll take an actual proctored assessment where you'll do some programming. The other half of the Python assessment is a combination of multiple choice and fill-in-the-blank questions. So things that test your knowledge of Python. The statistics assessment is about an hour in length, and it covers basic statistical concepts. So we would say, for example, here at the University of Michigan, we have an introductory to stats course. It's called Stats 250. Yes. It's very popular. It's the largest course, actually, undergraduate course at Michigan, or one of the largest. So we're looking for that level of knowledge. It's a really positive, but also kind of introductory level statistics knowledge, knowing that we will then give you lots more statistical knowledge as you traverse through the program.
Absolutely. And she's using the word conditional admit because we're talking about just in the overarching timeline of things, you might be admitted to the program, and then at that point, those assessments would be made available to you.
That's right. So one of our listeners, or viewers I should say, is asking whether or not the program will allow for joint master's degrees. So could you concurrently be enrolled in the MADS program and another program?
So that's a great question. And I think it's one that we are still working through as a new degree program, and actually one of the first here on campus. It's something that across campus, as we're working with our other partners, that dual degree question has come up, and I know we are discussing what the implications might be for that.
That's exactly it. So we understand the merits of wanting to do that. This is an infrastructure challenge and not at a school level, at an institution level, because in most instances, if a student were pursuing that, they would be likely pursuing 2 degrees in 2 different schools or colleges. So as you can imagine, we've gotten some feedback from our central units that they're not exactly sure how we would do that. So it's not an impossibility, but it's also not something that we can say yes, when you start in the fall of 2019, this
Right.
is something that we can guarantee. If you have a more specific question or interest in being dually enrolled, I certainly would welcome you to email us, because I do think it's worth us examining. We also are getting some questions about things like assignments and group projects. So assignments will be a combination of auto-graded assignments and hand-graded assignments. It really will vary by course. There are some courses that will be quite programming heavy, where we would assume that the more of the assignments would be auto-graded by virtue of grading your programming. In other instances, we have courses that will require some writing assessment, for example, or will require you to do a presentation. In those instances, we would expect that they would be graded by, not be graded by an auto-grader, but rather be graded by a human. So the good news is that the program will really provide both mechanisms for grading. And then relatedly, course projects and group projects are a part of the program. We can't tell you with a specific amount of certainty how many group projects students will have the opportunity to participate in. We can tell you that a number of courses have incorporated opportunities for students to engage in community with one another, even if it's not a full group project. I can also tell you that we do have 3 culminating learning experiences. These happen after you take a certain number of MADS courses. The first 2 will happen during the curriculum. The last one is a capstone experience. It happens kind of towards the end or at the end of the curriculum. And those may be additional opportunities where you work with others. I can also tell you that in the School of Information, we're having lots of good conversation about how we build community for online students. And so it's something we're deeply committed to, helping our online students feel connected to one another, helping them feel connected to the School of Information, and helping them feel connected to and like another University of Michigan student. So we're going to have a number of different opportunities unfold over the course of the 2 years with which our first cohort will be taking MADS courses, where they also have an opportunity to become a part of and then strengthen their ties to this community. So if, in fact, someone doesn't have a bachelor's degree in, let's say, computer science, what are the implications, if any, for their application?
So great question. That is not a requirement. We do not have a requirement of any certain type or major of a degree that you might be coming in with. And I think that makes us a little bit unique, and I think, again, it kind of loops back to some of that holistic approach that we have, is that here at the School of Information, because we're hearing about this applied, we're hearing about the connection to people in the world and society, you really can be approaching data analytics from a number of different disciplines and areas. And so you might have a cognitive psychology background and are kind of thinking about this as in more of that human cognitive psychology way, and that would be perfectly appropriate. And so it really would not be a deterring factor to you applying if you don't come in with a technical degree. Great, thank you.
So we've got several questions that are related to our relationship with Coursera, and what I'm assuming is that at least a handful, if not more, of our viewers have had some experience taking one or more University of Michigan, generally, and School of Information specifically, MOOCs, on the Coursera platform. So we can talk a little bit about the relationship between the degree and those MOOCs. So for instance, one person has inquired if the courses will take the same shape as the Applied Data Science with Python specialization MOOC that we offer in the School of Information. There will be some congruency between some of the MOOC content and the degree content. So for example, some of the faculty that produced our UMSI MOOCs are also faculty that are teaching in our MADS program. The structure of having these, again, kind of 1 month, 1 credit courses, for those of you that are familiar with taking massive online open courses, that may feel, it may feel like that, meaning that kind of chunking the curriculum into these more kind of digestible, smaller time constrained experiences is more MOOC-like, and in fact we drew some inspiration for the format of the degree from our MOOC content.
The success of those.
Exactly. But do know, we want to be very clear because this question has come up, the MATS program is a degree. So the transcript is a fully accredited transcript with grades on it that confers a University of Michigan degree. It does not specify anywhere that the program's online, but it certainly does indicate that you've taken the full trajectory of 34 courses, credits in the MATS program, that you have participated in all of the essential elements of an applied data science degree, and that ultimately is the degree that's conferred. So is it different than MOOCs? It is. So for example, these courses are graded, where in our MOOC courses you may apply for certificates or you may audit the course, but generally speaking in massive online open courses there's no grades. When the course is launched, you will have access to an instructor who's teaching the course, who's a faculty that's teaching a credit-bearing course. So that person will be available to you in a different way than how faculty are available in a MOOC, for example. The number of students participating in our program will be smaller than a number of the cohorts of MOOC learners, and that's by design. So it will give you an opportunity to interact more fully and deeply with people that are in the MATS program. So there's some similarities, lots of differences. The two do have a nice synergistic relationship with one another, but I'd want to be very clear that they are distinct as well. So let's see, can we talk a little bit about waivers for the application fee based on successfully completing MOOCs?
Yes, great question. I briefly touched on waivers and some of the distinctions for the English language proficiency exams. There is also the opportunity to waive the application fee, and there are several different indicators on our website for that, and it could be some type of affiliation you might have, and there's a list of maybe 10, 15, 20 at this point that might be an affiliation or experience-based fee waiver, but also there are fee waivers provided for folks who might have completed any number of our MOOC courses here through UMSI. And that process is listed on the website. You're just going to complete the form, upload your certificate, and we send it right back to you, and you're able to attach that and process the fee waiver that way.
Great. Now, relatedly, since we're on the topic of things like cost of application, for example, we also are getting some questions about costs or scholarships and financial aid options. So can you tell us a little bit more about the criteria for financial aid and scholarships and the kinds of scholarships that we plan on awarding?
Absolutely. And so I mentioned that April 1st deadline, which again is for priority consideration for both admission and for financial aid and scholarship consideration. And really, there is no additional application to be considered for scholarships. It is part of our consideration holistically as we're reviewing you for admission, is also looking for scholarship consideration that you might be eligible for. So our scholarships really range. You might be offered anywhere from a partial to a full tuition if you are offered a scholarship, and those range from need-based to merit-based to other types of diversity or diversity broadly defined funding that we might have available to offer students.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah. So the good news is that we've got lots of options.
We do. And I should always say we are here to talk through that process and what that looks like. And so scholarships is one really kind of avenue to think about funding your degree. But we have a lot of different resources around funding that we are always here to communicate and talk with you about your specific situation, but also broadly. A lot of folks, funding is a huge piece.
That's right.
Of what we know when you are taking time to invest in any type of degree program, and so we want to be seen as a resource for you as you are figuring out how that might work for you.
Great, thank you. So I'm just looking at all of the questions that Caitlin is submitting, and there's many of them. We are still getting questions about the assessments, and I recognize why, because they're not yet live, and so of course that's raising good questions. So for example, there are questions about practice assessments. So we have practice assessments happening in two forms. So the first is that we will enable students, or applicants I should say, to have access to a subset of questions that will be like the questions that you will see on the assessments. So they're not full practice assessments, but they will at least give you a subset of questions, both for Python and statistics. And those will actually be made publicly available on our website, si.umich.edu, and then if you are to drill down into the MADS application page, you will see a link there to a PDF document that should be live shortly, and that document will give you access to what our question types will look like. So, you know, what are the statistics questions by topic, and how are they structured? And same thing for Python. If you are conditionally admitted, you will go into a Coursera shell that will offer you a next level of practice, and those are full practice assessments that are hosted in Coursera. We're doing that intentionally because the actual assessments are also hosted in Coursera, so we want to give our conditionally admitted students an opportunity to practice in that format. So if you're conditionally admitted and invited to participate in those assessments, you'll have access to them right in Coursera. We'll very clearly label for you, these are the practice ones and these are not, you know, these are the actual ones. So you can take the practice assessments, get comfortable with the question types again, comfortable with the formats, and then once you're ready, then you can move into taking the actual assessments. In order to prepare for those assessments, we do have a number of resources available that we will also post in that course shell in Coursera, and some of which we can also post online. You do also have the opportunity to take a massive online open course, one or more, that touch on these very topics. So for instance, we do have a Python for Everyone programming course that is available through Coursera. It's a massive online open course. You can take it for free, and it will give you an opportunity to access Python content or the Python language in an instance where you're less familiar with it or you want to brush up. We also have a Statistics with Python course through Coursera that's hosted by taught by some of our LSA stats faculty. So that will give you access to both the combination of Python and statistics. Again, it's a massive online open course that you can take advantage of through Coursera. So relatedly, people are inquiring about whether or not we will waive assessments depending on their incoming knowledge. And my understanding is that that's not something that we're prepared to do yet because the program is new and this is our first admissions process. So essentially, if you do get conditionally admitted, the expectation is that you're taking the assessments. The good news is that if you do have a lot of familiarity
if you feel like you would waive it, I'm sure that would be a great, might be a great fun refresher.
That's exactly it. Then we would assume that it is highly likely that your Python assessment in particular will be quick.
Yeah.
And
do you have a sense of how long the assessments are meant to be?
Yeah. The Python assessment combined, both the programming assignment and the question should be about an hour, and the stats assessment should be about an hour. Yeah, so give or take. The Python programming language is also come up in the context of the degree. So although the program is in Python, and so you will certainly hone your Python skills over time, it is not to say that we will also not be introducing additional elements or techniques or methods that are really important for data scientists. So for example, we've had the question come up, well, will people in this program learn SQL? You know, will they have access to that? Yes, they absolutely will. You know, will people have access to or learn about some advanced statistical techniques, for instance, or the combination of using statistics or perhaps using advanced statistical techniques in Python? And the answer to that question is yes. So although Python is the programming language, it's highly directed towards data science study and practice in this program, and so consequently you will be exposed to and learning a lot of additional technical skills and techniques that we're really excited about and think are going to prepare people quite well for data science careers. So we did get a question about the tuition. So for state of Michigan residents, the per credit cost is $932. And so for the 34 degree credit degree total, the cost would be about $31,688. Now that doesn't include some fees. It also doesn't include, of course, the offset cost from any sort of awarded scholarships. But generally speaking, it's about $32,000 for in-state. For out-of-state or I should say non-Michigan residents, it's about $1,243 per credit, or about $42,262 for the full 34 credit degree. Are international students in fact eligible for scholarships?
Yes. Absolutely. And I should say, too, something unique for us is that we are also offering the opportunity for scholarships to part-time students. So students pursuing the degree part-time is something we're able to offer. So eligibility ranges across any applicant. You would all be considered for those different funding opportunities.
That's wonderful. Mm-hmm. So we recognize that some students may be doing this degree from very far away, so from countries outside of the United States. Mm-hmm. Some students might be doing this degree living in Ann Arbor.
Right next door.
That's right. And so that's what's kind of cool about this, is that we're going to have folks from everywhere. So one of the questions that we got is, if I do in fact live very close, could I come to campus to participate in events, for example, or to meet people? Or if I live very far away, what if I want to take an opportunity one day to visit Ann Arbor? What would that look like? So we're doing that. We're working on that right now. And we're coming up with ways both for our MAD students to potentially visit us and have the opportunity to be exposed to Ann Arbor, and equally importantly, we're finding ways to bring Ann Arbor to you. So in an instance where you can't physically be here, we've talked about ways that we can live stream events, or give you access to opportunities, or maybe even meet MAD students somewhere else, like meet them in LA or meet them in Dubai. So our goal is to have MADs in some ways be everywhere. The asynchronous learning, of course, will happen wherever you are, and the other events will happen either virtually for those of you that can't be close, or you could actually come to campus for some things if you are. So the good news there is that we're hoping to have something for everyone that participates in the program. We're working out what the finer details are on that, but I can tell you, for those of you that are in the state of Michigan and within about an hour of Ann Arbor, we would certainly welcome you to come here and again, engage us in the University of Michigan School of Information community. Will there be internships available? That's a great question. So as a participant of the program, will I have the standing to do an internship? Great question. So the good news is, because the Master's of Applied Data Science degree is a degree, that means that all of our MAD students also have access to School of Information resources that are for students. Absolutely. So that includes a career development office that is staffed by a wonderful team of professionals who are really well versed in how to help our School of Information students and graduates get data science and of course other information jobs. So we certainly are planning on having a dedicated, one or more kind of dedicated staff, or folks that are at least trained and kind of well versed in working with our MAD students, so they can support you through internship and job searches. And we absolutely believe that there will be opportunities for our MAD students to do things like participate in internships with data science companies.
Absolutely.
Is April 1st the final deadline?
It is not. It is our first priority deadline. So April 1st will be that first deadline to be considered for admission for fall, and again for scholarship consideration as well.
Great. Is a minimum GPA of 3.0 a hard and fast minimum?
No, not at all. And we can talk broadly about some of the minimum language. So we have some preferred minimums, and that's really for you to get a gauge of what students who have come into other UMSI programs, what they might have come in with in the past. Since we have no benchmarking for an admitting class for this particular degree, we do have that 3.0 minimum preferred GPA, but I will always come back to that holistic review process when I talk about what a GPA can mean and what kind of additional context might provide as part of that GPA. So I encourage you to still apply. It might be that GPA might be from some time ago, so something where you have now since had several years of experience, or maybe have taken some additional coursework in a different related or unrelated area that could provide some additional context or additional academic indicators for us, and that we would welcome as well as part of your application materials. So it is not something that would or should keep you from applying.
Do I need the GRE?
You do not need the GRE, so none of our UMSI graduate degree programs require the GRE.
Excellent. Can I submit video responses to the personal statement and statement of purpose prompts as opposed to written responses?
So I don't believe that the format of the application will allow for a video upload in that particular section. We have had an additional information section that's at the end of the application, and if it is uploadable in that section, you're welcome to upload any kind of complimentary video piece or portfolio item into that additional information section. And if for some reason it isn't allowing you to upload directly into the application, but you feel it's an important piece of your application materials that you'd like to share with the committee, you can always email it directly to us and we can work to get that uploaded on the back end for you.
Great. As people are talking to their recommenders, one or more of our viewers are wondering how they should talk to their recommenders around the kind of letter that they're looking for. So should, in fact, the recommenders be emphasizing technical skills? Should they be emphasizing overall kind of characteristics on personality or fit? Is it about character traits? You know, what are the kinds of things that you're looking for?
That's a good question. And so recommenders broadly, this might sound redundant, but really you should be thinking about who are those 3 folks who know you and can speak to your skills and experience and interests in pursuing this particular degree. So that might have components of technical. It could be your leadership and resilience or perseverance. It could be things around your communication, your sort of different skills that relate to pursuing graduate degree as a whole, and also pursuing this particular applied data science master program. So I would say that when you're talking to these recommendation writers, you can be thinking about how they might be able to really paint the picture of your skills as it relates to that. I often like to think too, you know, you have 3. There's 3 opportunities, so maybe it's you're kind of selecting the 3 people who can give some breadth of your experience. So whether that's breadth, depth in a particular area, who can really speak to kind of who you are as a whole, and that could offer some different opportunities to really highlight who you are and what you would bring to this degree experience and to the field ultimately.
That's excellent. So for those folks that have degrees from institutions outside of the United States or institutions in the United States but that have different GPA scales, so regardless if it's internal or domestic, international or domestic, what do you recommend? How should they express their grade point average?
Yes, so there is a place on the application where you can self-report a GPA, but do note that in particular for our international institutions, we take a look at all of the transcripts that are submitted, and we help calculate so that there's equity across those institutions and the GPAs there. So we would need to receive an original copy. So oftentimes we get a question about a WES evaluation. We don't accept the WES evaluation. We would want to see the actual transcript, which lists the grades and the courses taken. And if it is an international institution, oftentimes it'll say right on the transcript that the medium of instruction was English. And that often helps us to be able to waive that TOEFL requirement. But often too, if you went to an institution where the medium of instruction was not English, we will need to receive a translated copy of your transcript to be able to assess it at that time.
Great, thank you. And then another question that has to do with both kind of scholarships and admissions decisions. So the priority application deadline is April 1st. Yes. When do those applications actually get reviewed? And are there advantages, for example, in so much as scholarship offers for individuals that meet that priority deadline? Yeah,
so the way we really think about Well, I'm going to break that into 2. So
Great,
you've got the kind of when is it being reviewed, right?
Yes.
So with that April 1st deadline, we do say that to allow for a few weeks for us to process all of the materials that we will be receiving at that time. So it's a lot of pieces, as you know, for each of the pieces of that application. And so we're wanting to make sure that we have everything received, processed, and ready to go for that review committee to begin reviewing. So we do ask for a few weeks for us to begin processing those materials. You can always check back. There is a portal that you can access yourself to see where we are at in that process. And so it will give you real time. I believe you also get weekly updates too, but it'll also be real-time information about where your application materials are at in the process, what's been received, what has been processed, so that you know when specifically your application has moved on to that review process. And so that was the first half. And the second half was, what that priority deadline means for scholarships.
Yep, consideration.
So as you can imagine, we have the funding that we do. And so what we will do is, we will look at the priority applications for that first round of scholarship consideration. So we will look at those applicants to determine that first round of scholarship. And then from there, additional applications, as I mentioned, that do come in after April 1st will still absolutely be considered. But it might be in a subsequent round after initial decisions had been released.
Great, thank you. So as you can imagine, because we've been talking so much about application deadlines, when people might know if they've been conditionally admitted, assessments, the question has also come up, well, how many people are you actually aiming to take? And that's a great question. So in our first year, we're hoping to fill a class of about 150 students. Yes. We have some flexibility there. We have made public the information that to start, all students in the MADS degree will be part-time students, and it will take about 24 months, at least 24 months to complete the degree. And that's because we're going to be producing courses and rolling curriculum out as students are participating in the program. So the steady state, so to say, will look a little bit different than what will happen at launch. Relatedly then, students or applicants are asking about admission cycles.
Got it.
So in an instance where they're not ready to apply in the fall 2019, when may be the next admission cycle that they can participate in? And if I'm remembering correctly, Rachel, it sounds like that's something that the School of Information that we're still kind of figuring out.
We are, yes. We do expect that there will be several opportunities potentially throughout a year for you to apply at different points. But more information about that will be coming once it's more definitively determined.
That's exactly right. So in steady state, we would anticipate having roughly 3 admission cycles per year, where students could join us in the fall, the winter, or the spring, summer semesters.
Correct.
But to start, we may not be able to do it that way. And so if you want to start in 2019, we would definitely recommend that you apply to and plan on starting in 2019.
Yes.
If you are invested in applying and starting in 2021, then you may end up applying in 3 different, 2 or 3 different time frames in that 2021 year. But to start, we can tell you absolutely that we'll launch in September 2019, and that the current application cycle is really for those folks that are excited about and kind of and ready to start with us. So related to that, someone has asked the question about max time to finish. So how many years, for example, could you take? We're not necessarily putting a number of limit or a limit on years to degree. We recognize that some folks may move at a very slow pace by virtue of other commitments or because of cost. We recognize that some folks may need to take a break because of life circumstances, for example. So we now have an opportunity to look at the curriculum for 3 years in addition to our standard 12, 20, and 24-month cycles in steady state. So if you wanted to, for example, participate for 36 months, that's certainly an option. You could go beyond that, so that's something that's possible. I don't know how likely it will be. I think we'll find that out as students engage in the degree. But do know that we haven't set a specific threshold to say you must complete the degree in this many semesters or this many years. So let's look back at our questions so we can continue to respond to them. Let's see. So, is the MADS degree an accredited degree? Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. So all of the degrees at the School of Information at the University of Michigan offer are accredited. MADS is accredited through the HLC, which is the same accrediting body that accredits the University of Michigan. So that is absolutely something that we can say is true and confirmed that, yes, we are accredited. Let's see. What if anything will program staff and professors do to help students think about how best to apply their degree? So that's a great question. Yeah. It's a really good question, and I think particularly because the program is called an applied master's degree in data science. So what does that mean? It means that the application of data science is really the focus of this degree. What we'd like to say is some programs take a theoretical focus. So they really focus on the theory behind the practice of data science. Others take a largely computational focus. So they really focus very hard on the computational or kind of the quant aspects of data science. And ours is really the intersection of those things in addition to practice. So we sit at the intersection of computation, theory, and practice. And so what that means is we will inform you of theory, right? So we will help you understand the theory behind the practice. We will teach you, of course, good computation, or kind of, again, the underpinnings of computation. But really, a lot of the courses in the maths degree will focus on the practice of that theory and computation. So that means working with actual data sets. It means helping you understand how something you're doing in a machine learning course relates to how data scientists use machine learning in the field. It will give you an opportunity to recognize ways in which data visualizations are employed by specific industries or employers. And we will have opportunities for you, in fact, to talk to those data scientists that are University of Michigan School of Information alums who are out there practicing data science. So you can really get a better kind of practical sense of, okay, so we're learning this really sophisticated, modeling technique or Python library, what are the implications out in the real world? So we're deeply committed to giving students as much as we can in that regard. And the good news is that it's an applied degree. So
right, and I think applied in that both inside the classroom, as Amy was mentioning, but also finding ways to apply that outside of the classroom. So it's something that we boast here about at the School of Information broadly, is that we have staff who are dedicated to really supporting you and finding ways to apply these concepts and contexts in different settings. So wherever that might be for you. And it might be within the context of a classroom, or it could be outside of that. And so we have our Office of Professional and Community Engagement, who is solely and uniquely dedicated to finding and making those connections for students in these more applied ways. And also, as Amy mentioned, our Career Development Office is a team of folks who work with you to decide and determine where within the context of the field you see yourself wanting to be placed, whether that's during, kind of throughout your program experience, or after.
That's right. So good news is that because we're emphasizing applied, and because we're emphasizing real world, and because we've got a number of curricular and co-curricular opportunities that speak to that, we do envision that there will be lots of opportunity for collaboration between students. Some of that collaboration may come in the form of assignments, so actually giving students an opportunity to collaborate with others in assignments. Some may come in the form of discussions, so we'll have different communication vehicles that math students can opt into as a way to engage other math students. Some of that will come in the way of events or learning opportunities that we will either host in an online capacity or bring to a subset of math students wherever they are. So we are keenly aware of our math students wanting to have opportunities to get to know one another, and other UMSI students who are in our residential degree programs, and so we're highly attuned to ensuring that those opportunities happen. Because the courses are asynchronous, it does mean that you can really participate wherever, whenever. We will have a series of live office hours in most of our courses that, if you cannot make, will be recorded so you may access later. We will have course instructional aids that will support our faculty teaching courses. So in an instance where you have questions that need to be answered, you'll have more than one person with which you can reach out for those answers. But the good news is that the program is designed to be highly flexible. So all of the pre-recorded content you can access whenever it works for your schedule. Right now, there's not specializations in the curriculum, because we're getting some questions about specializations and electives. And I recognize the value in asking those questions. So right now, the 34 credits, which is about 27 classes, given that we have a couple of our culminating learning experiences, our project-based courses are about 2 to 3 credits each. All students will essentially engage in that curriculum. The good news, however, is that in those culminating learning experiences, each of our math students may have the opportunity to drill down more into a more specific subset of data science. So if there's a specific topic like learning analytics, that's really exciting and kind of and something you've made a commitment to, there certainly may be opportunities for you, particularly in those project-based courses, to delve a little bit more deeply into that. Relatedly, we are getting questions, and have before, good questions about math requirements. So we intentionally are creating a program that does not require someone to come in with a deep math background. So what I mean by that, for example, is we're not making linear algebra or calculus a requirement. Now, that being said, do we anticipate that some of the concepts that you'll learn in the program rely on linear algebra or calculus, for example? Absolutely. And so there will be instances where you'll be exposed to linear algebra, for example. It doesn't mean you have to learn it, but you'll at least know, like, this is why this matrix, these matrices rely on linear algebra. There's also a math methods course that's part of the MADS curriculum. And so in that course, we're going to give you the opportunity to learn some math skills that for some of you may be known, and for others likely won't be known, but we're really hoping to set you up for success with the math that we introduce by giving you access to those math concepts. At the same time, for those of you that are more familiar with or really love math, there's also a great opportunity here for you to use math. So the program is rigorous, certainly, and we're not shying away from that. We're just hoping to create a paradigm where folks that have less math experience and more math experience can see themselves in our program. And everything that I'm seeing in being intimately involved in the production of the courses suggests to me that that's true. Let's see. Is there a possibility or vision that this could open up to a PhD in applied data science? Oh, that's a great question. I can't
Thank
say
you for asking.
I
put that on our radar.
I know. I can't say it's come up explicitly, but I do think that if we have one or more viewers or applicants that are really committed to getting a PhD, want to kind of do this degree on, is a way of supporting that long-term plan, we could talk about it, so I think that's a good question for our email.
We do have our residential PhD program where, as Amy mentioned, since these faculty members teaching in the online MADS degree program will also be they're the same ones who are here in our residential program. So I do imagine that if a PhD is of interest to you, that you can absolutely, we're the same people here who work with the PhD program, so happy to connect with you too about any sort of future endeavors or interests that you have, whether that is career-based or academics or wherever that might lead you.
That's great. Thank you. So, the interesting thing is that, and it's interesting, and I think in a really meaningful way, and something I do want to again reiterate is around the nature of how the courses are being designed and implemented. So we do get a lot of good questions about the kind of where practicality drops off and where theory picks up, for instance. So will this degree be as attractive to more experienced professionals or people already working in data science versus those that want to move into data science? So my argument would be, based on everything that I've seen in the faculty and that we talk about in lots of meetings about the curriculum, is that we're really doing both. So for those folks that have a little bit more experience and are looking for this degree as a great credential and opportunity to deepen that experience, we will give you opportunities to do that. And you will understand the theory behind certain data science principles or techniques. You will have access to data, to real data that you can do, certain sophisticated kind of analysis with. You will be able to engage with researchers and data scientists that are experts and very well known in this field. And so for all of those reasons, we think that it really will attract more experienced professionals. At the same time, we also think that we can attract people that are interested in launching a data science career by giving them access, for example, to a math methods course that explains the kind of math that really makes up the core of data science, or by helping everyone in the program become more fluent in Python and understanding how we apply Python to data science problems. So the short answer is that the program really is well suited for either, and there is some ways in which, although the curriculum is steadfast, that you can see variability within courses and or variability within the kinds of co-curricular or additional experiential learning opportunities that students choose to do. And Rachel, does that feel true to you of some of the students that come into our residential programs, for example? Who are they? What do they look like?
Yeah, so they come from, so we have over 100 majors represented, so that's a little bit more about the interdisciplinary nature that we have here as part of our UMSI culture. And then similarly, yes, you can have folks who are career starters, career changers, wanting to advance within an already existing career. So really, I think you're talking exactly about that sort of variability within, but also that breadth and depth within. So we have a number of students who are coming in and kind of wanting to dabble in the field more broadly, others who have a little bit more of, or maybe they start thinking that and then they really find what they're interested in and start digging it a bit deeper. So I think that it can really accommodate sort of the interest that you have, and also being open to knowing that you might find and discover some new interests along the way that get you excited about it. And it allows for some of that too to be happening throughout the program.
I love that. So I do think you're right that the interdisciplinary nature of what we do in the School of Information, who our faculty are, that a number of them are actually interdisciplinary scholars, or they come from a scholarly discipline and then they transition into our highly interdisciplinary school, which gives them an opportunity to collaborate with perhaps folks that are not, from their backgrounds. For example, is one of the things that really makes us unique, and I think is a value add.
Absolutely.
When we talk about the difference between our applied data science program versus another data science program, or a program like data science. So for example, a program in applied statistics, for example. So it is in that kind of that intersection of data science, statistics, computer science, and other kind of information fields that makes us unique. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So can you transfer credits into our program? No is the answer for now. So we, because of the nature of kind of how the curriculum is structured, the end-to-end approach, the way classes kind of fit together and build on one another, we can't currently accept transfer credits. I don't know that that will always be true, but I can tell you for now that the answer is no. Yes, so we have a good question about flexibility for adding or withdrawing from classes. So that's a great question, and the reason why is because, again, our classes are short, and that's by design, and we're excited about that design. But what that also means is that drops and adds look very different for us than they may look for longer classes. So generally speaking, we're looking at about a week drop add deadline. So that means if you start a course and something changes for you, or you let's say you start 3, but then in reality you're like, you know what, I really can only do 2. That's right. I can only do 2 credits this month. Then you would have a week after the course starts to make that drop add decision. Now that being said, we do have other things at our disposal for students, for example, that encounter situations. So in an instance where you're 3 weeks in and something happens, for example, in your personal life that impacts your ability to finish that session, we may be, and usually are happy to work with you to try to determine what the next steps are. We also, because the curriculum is highly flexible and portable, you could take those drops and likely start that class again very soon, relatively quickly. So the good news there is that even though you have less time to drop or add a course, you have more opportunities to retake that course. But do know that in addition to the drop add deadline, we have other ways of working with students to ensure that we're responding to their needs or kind of what comes up for them in life.
Right. I think it's a great point too, because we're asking this at a really great time. It's kind of leading into and in preparation of what might happen, but oftentimes we know things are you don't always know. So the one thing that you can know is that we are here to really work with you individually. We do it all the time, every day, with students here at UMSI. And so knowing that whether you know it now to ask the question now, or if it comes up at a later time, that the team here is very much dedicated and open to working with what might be best for your particular situation.
So language requirements are coming up again, and that makes a lot of sense to me because we talk a lot about it. So I'm curious, what's the TOEFL score we're looking for, and why, I think is the kind of important part there. And then do we accept any other kind of English proficiency exams?
Yeah, so Similarly, with the preferred minimum GPA of a 3.0, we also have a preferred minimum TOEFL of 100. And we really look for sort of distribution or sort of balance across the sub-scores of that TOEFL. So there's the 4 sub-scores. And we look for about 25 in each of those scores. And that is really something that we've seen in terms of wanting to really highlight, much like an assessment would, just to really highlight what we think would make someone successful in this program. And then the second part was about, other tests. Yes. We do have the option for an IELTS exam. The TOEFL is preferred, but we do receive a handful of IELTS scores each year as well, which can be sent to the same institution code, that 1839 code, and that can be accepted as well.
Great. So one person is wondering, at least one person, can I enroll in classes at any time, or will there be a series of prerequisites that guide us through the program? So it's a combination, actually. So there are some courses that require prerequisites, and we will tell you, we'll be very explicit from the outset about what those are, and there are some that don't. So there will be some instances where you can enroll in something whenever you want, and other instances where you may have to take 1 or more classes before. So the objective, again, here is to be fairly flexible, to give people an opportunity to pick and choose when they can, but also to be very explicit from the outset about what we know to be prerequisites for future courses. So it's a good combination that I think will give people an opportunity to pick and choose, and yet at the same time also know, okay, this, I've already taken this, or I haven't taken that yet, but I know I need to in order to be successful in this next course. The kind of faculty that are teaching in the MADS program are again, mostly, if not almost exclusively, core UMSI faculty. So when we think about faculty that teach in the residential program here at the School of Information, those are some of the same folks that are going to be teaching. So if you were to look at our faculty directory, for example, and you saw Xiaozhu Mi, for example, who's our program director, he is also one of the faculty teaching MADS courses. Or Chris Brooks, who's one of our faculty and data scientist, of course, again, who is really instrumental in developing a couple of MADS courses. We have folks like Kevin Collins Thompson, who is also a faculty who's produced MOOCs, and will be taking that expertise in machine learning and applying it to the MADS curriculum. And then, of course, we have Charles Severance, or Dr. Chuck, as he's very well known in the MOOC ecosystem, and he's going to be teaching a couple of our courses, one on SQL and databases, and one on architecture, database architecture, and technology. So super excited to have him on board. We also have folks like Yan Chen, who's a behavioral economist, but a UMSI faculty, who's going to teach a course on experiment design and analysis. So really providing some great perspective around how to do that well, for example. So the range of faculty really span in so much as some of their disciplinary backgrounds or the ways in which they drill down into data science, but do know that we have a lot of amazing faculty who we actually see quite a bit and work with very closely, who are very excited to be participating in teaching MADS courses. So, so we did, I think, answer this question earlier, but let's answer it again, just to be clear. Yes. Are international students eligible for scholarships?
Yes. International students are eligible for the scholarships consideration at the time that you apply.
Excellent, thank you. So we've already spent over an hour together.
Oh, wow.
If you can believe it.
Flew by.
Yes, I know. It's gone quickly, very quickly. And what Caitlin is telling me is that we do have some questions that are more specific, and we want to ensure that we give you a high-touch, high level of engagement and specific answer. Yes. So to facilitate that, if you have a specific question, or if there's a question that Rachel and I simply just didn't get to by virtue of time, we would welcome you to email us. That email address is umsi.mads, M-A-D-S, at UMICH, or UMISH as we call it, .edu. So you are welcome to email us 24/7. I can't guarantee we'll respond within a matter of minutes, but I can guarantee that we would generally respond pretty quickly, and are happy to help you in an individual level. So Rachel, as we start to wrap up, I'm curious if you could just give us a sense of your overall kind of takeaways or feelings about the MADS program. So what are you most excited about with a new group of students and a new degree coming to the School of Information?
I get excited about this every year is just the energy and the different unique ideas. I think what you're hearing here is we have answers and then we don't have some answers. And I think what I'm really looking forward to is what this first and pioneering cohort is going to allow us to learn and to be able to grow and to really kind of learn what those needs are and how we can continue to meet them. So we've done a lot of great benchmarking, a lot of great work on the front end, and I expect that energy and interest will continue to allow us to ebb and flow and be flexible around what those needs will continue to be. So I'm excited.
That's great. I'm really excited too, and I echo those sentiments. I'm very eager to see who this first class of math students are and how they come into the school in a different way and yet become full members of this community. So we are very eager to get your applications. Again, as a reminder, the priority deadline is April 1st. It doesn't mean you can't submit an application after April 1st. You certainly can.
Absolutely.
But the priority deadline is April 1st. We're here to answer any and all of your admissions questions at umsi.mats@umich.edu. And we're very, very excited to launch this degree in the School of Information with what I would anticipate might be several of you entering our inaugural class. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and sign off for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Do know that we will be in touch over email with some additional communications throughout the rest of March, and we will very much look forward to reviewing your applications.